865 words within the 5% target range. Here's the script. In 2013, a woman known only as SM sat in a sealed lab chamber and inhaled a single breath of carbon dioxide, and researchers still cannot account for what her brain did next. For over a decade, she had been the one documented human being on record who could not feel fear, not fearless by choice, incapable. And in that chamber, something in her fired that should not have been able to fire at all. SM lived in Iowa. She was diagnosed with a rare genetic condition called Urbach-Wiethe disease, one that had slowly calcified and destroyed both of her amygdalae, the almond-shaped nodes buried at the center of the limbic system, the region every neuroscience textbook calls the brain's fear circuit. By the time researchers found her in the early 2000s, the damage was total, symmetrical, complete on both sides. No other case like it existed in the medical literature. Ethics boards don't let anyone deliberately destroy a healthy person's amygdala to study what's left behind. Disease had already done the work no lab ever could, and it left researchers a subject they would spend the next decade studying like a map of a country nobody thought was reachable. She became, functionally, a natural experiment nobody could have designed on purpose. And her file was strange from the start. She had been held at knife point, held at gunpoint. Nearly strangled by a man in a park. Walked willingly through a haunted house rigged with actors meant to terrify. In every instance, nothing. No racing heart. No freeze response. No dread. Researchers led her through snake enclosures and spider tanks, and she reached toward the animals with open curiosity, the way a child reaches for something new, not something dangerous. Her limbic system, the part of the brain wired across millions of years of evolution to keep an organism alive, had gone completely silent on the one signal it exists to send. The obvious theory was simple. Destroy the amygdala, destroy fear. Case closed. For years, that was the accepted model, and SM was the proof. Her condition seemed to confirm exactly what animal studies had already suggested, that the limbic system, and the amygdala specifically, was the seat of fear itself. Remove the hardware, remove the emotion. Neuroscience had its clean, tidy answer, and SM had lived it out for over a decade without a single documented exception. Then, in 2013, a team led by researcher Justin Feinstein tried something no one had tried on her before. Not a threat from the outside world, a threat from the inside. They had her breathe a single vial of carbon dioxide-enriched air, a substance known to trigger a suffocation alarm deep in the body, one theorized to bypass the amygdala entirely and hit the brainstem directly. If the amygdala truly was the sole gatekeeper of fear, nothing should have happened. She should have inhaled it the way she'd faced the knife, the gun, the snakes. Calm. Untouched, instead she panicked, gasping, clawing at her chest, begging them to stop. For the first time in the documented history of her condition, SM reported the unmistakable textbook sensation of fear. The very thing her damaged brain was supposed to be structurally incapable of producing. It shouldn't have been possible under the existing model, and yet it happened, recorded, replicated, published. The one exception in an otherwise perfect decade of fearlessness arrived through her lungs, not her eyes. That single breath broke the tidy story. If the amygdala were truly the fear center, sealed off and destroyed in her case, the CO2 response should have gone nowhere. Instead, it suggested something researchers still can't fully map. A second, deeper fear pathway inside the limbic system, or beneath it, that doesn't root through the amygdala at all, one that had simply never been triggered by external threats because those threats aren't how it's built to detect danger. Every theory proposed since has explained part of the reaction and left the rest hanging. Was it a suffocation alarm in the brainstem operating independently, older and cruder than anything the amygdala handles? Was it a redundant limbic pathway that had been sitting dormant, hiding in plain sight through decades of otherwise careful neuroscience? Was it something about interoception, the sense of the body's own internal state? That has nothing to do with the circuitry researchers spent a century mapping onto external threats like knives and snakes. Feinstein's own team admitted the finding didn't fit cleanly into any existing model of how fear is supposed to work. None of the competing explanations account for why a brain with zero working amygdala tissue could still, under the right internal pressure, produce the exact emotion it was declared incapable of feeling. SM is still alive. She still walks through haunted houses without flinching. She still handles snakes without hesitation. But somewhere inside a limbic system missing its supposed command center, one pathway is still capable of sounding an alarm nobody can locate, triggered by something inside her own body instead of anything in the world outside it. If the fear center was destroyed, What exactly answered when she couldn't breathe?